Yes, people, we're back again. Welcome back to Football's 12th Man. The channel is back, the show is back, and I've got an unbelievable guest with me, man. One of my favourites, one of my friends, and a friend of the channel, Curtis Shaw. How are you, bruv?
Yeah, all good, bro. Just recovering from last night, like you and everyone else, I think. So, yeah, man, I'm good, bro. Can't complain.
Listen, man, you're absolutely smashing it on your channel. It's great to see. Make sure if you're not doing so already that you're following Curtis Shaw on Curtis Shaw TV. I'm sure that you all are. If you are not, I don't know what you are doing. Make sure you hit the subscribe button over there and support this guy, man. He's an absolute ledge. Let's touch on last night, bruv, because that was a mad ending. Like I've not been Gareth Southgate's biggest fan, but last night I had to sit there and praise him. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going over the top with it because I think we should be beating the Netherlands and every single team that
Yeah.
England have faced. I think we should have been beaten. But sometimes when things aren't going quite right, the substitutions, I've always looked at Gareth Southgate and kind of scratched my head. And last night, for the first time in what felt like a long time, I actually understood it and got it right. I think Cole Palmer deserves to be making an impact because he has done in every single game so far. And Ollie Watkins, he could have gone with Tony, but it worked for him, mate. Palmer to Watkins, and we win the game. Like I think he deserves a little bit of credit last night, Gareth Southgate. But how did you see it, bro?
I think it's about time, innit? It was probably the first game of the tournament where you've actually felt a little bit entertained. Like I sat there at half time, I thought that's the best 45 minutes of the tournament. Um, and yeah, I mean, I tweeted Southgate masterclass. It was a little bit, tongue in cheek, but actually he made the double change and he took off Kane, which I think Kane's been very frustrating in this tournament, playing
Mm.
so deep, and kind of reminds me of like lockdown Lacazette when he was in midfield. But he got it right. Watkins gets the goal. Like you said, I was actually thinking, will you go with Tony? But I think he felt Watkins will stretch the defense, get in the area. What a goal as well. And even the fact he took off Trippier at half time, who shouldn't even be in the team in the first place, but at least he got, he acknowledged that he'd got it wrong and took him off. So I think we all knew unless England won this competition, Southgate was going to be, sort of scrutinised because people feel, okay, on paper, you're the second most successful England manager apart from Alf Ramsey, but you should have won a major tournament with this squad. They should have beaten
Mm.
Italy in the Euros at Wembley. And, I think it's all down to Sunday now. And I think the way they won yesterday, it's different to just winning on penalties or scraping by. It's such a good goal and winning in extra time. I think they've got to take that momentum. I know Spain have been brilliant in this competition, but England have got to go and exploit their weaknesses because I do think they have got weaknesses, especially in defence.
Yeah, they have, man, 100%. And I don't think that Walker and Stones have showed anywhere near the level that they do for Manchester City in an England shirt. And I do think that there's definitely some question marks over the stubbornness to continue to play Kieran Trippier, bruv, at left wing back, which I just don't think works. He's got 1 foot, cuts inside, doesn't give us any width. You could see straight away in the two times that we've seen Luke Shaw and Bukayo Saka play there that we just look so much more balanced. So I'll be tempted to go with one of those two in the final, either Shaw or Saka. But I mean, he's got a decision to make with Harry Kane. He's got a decision to make at left wing back. He's definitely got a decision to make in terms of if he continues some of these players. But I have to say, I think he's so stubborn, bruv, that I think he's just going to keep the same side. He's just going to have the argument that, well, these players have got us there. So Watkins and Palmer are subs, and I'm going to keep them as subs. Tony's a sub. He works. I'm going to keep him when he comes on as a sub. There's still an argument to be had that whether Anthony Gordon and Trent have played enough football, which I probably would
Yeah.
argue to state that they probably haven't. But overall, if Southgate wins it, I don't really care, bruv. Like a lot of people say, like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to shut up. Yeah, I will shut up. Just like when Arteta wins me a trophy, I'll do exactly the same when Southgate wins a trophy for England. I'll shut up and say fair play to him. But I
Yeah.
still don't think we're going to beat Spain, bruv. So just lastly, what's your thoughts on the final now?
I mean, first of all, just quickly, the Harry Kane thing, I don't think Southgate in his head has got any decision to make whatsoever. Like, Kane is definitely starting that game.
Mm.
Crazy thing is, if Kane scores and Dani Olmo doesn't, he's going to win the Golden Boot.
Wow.
Considering the guy has stunk out the place the whole tournament, he could leave with a Golden Boot and a winner's medal. So I think Shaw for Trippier is maybe the only decision he might make because Trippier was awful, and I think Lamine Yamal would rip him apart. I
Oh,
think he can't be silly enough to play Trippier against him. So he might. I don't think he'll do anything apart from that. I think that'll be the only change. Spain are favourites because they keep the ball so well. The two wingers are so, devastating, especially Yamal. But I don't think it's people are messaging me saying, "Oh, England will get battered." I'm like, nah, I don't think they will. I think it will be a close game, and I think England, they're kind of playing off moments. I think Spain will dominate the ball, but if England can take those chances, Cucurella at left back, Saka's ripped him apart multiple times. Morata up front, I think Stones and Gay. Gay, by the way, for me, has been one of the players of the tournament.
Same.
I would like to see him at Arsenal, but I don't think it will happen. And then even I just think that whole Spain back four can be got at. Carvalho's 33. Laporte's decent. That Lenormand next to him, I don't think is great. Cucurella's not great. I think you've got to really turn it into more of a Premier League game. Rough them up a little bit. Make those runs. Spain are favourites, definitely. I think England need to score first. If England can score first, they've got a chance, man. It could be an even game, I think.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got a chance. Well, it's a final, mate. Man City, Man United. Remember that? The FA Cup final?
Yeah.
Everyone was like, this is going to be a hammering. And then it was
Yeah.
a shock. And I'm not so sure it'd be a shock if England won, but certainly I think that Spain are the favourites. I think the way we have to win is we have to dominate that midfield, mate, because that's their best area. Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, Pedri, Dani Olmo, Nico Williams and Yamal, we've spoken about them, and let's be real, they've both absolutely lit up the tournament. So I think our midfield needs to be at it. Declan Rice needs a better game because I thought he was pretty poor last night. Obviously, Kobe Manu, I thought was man of the match. I thought he was outstanding, man. 19 years old, this kid, man. Jeez, I mean, I know there's a new structure at Manchester United, but if I was him, I'd be looking at players like Sancho and Rashford. I'd be thinking, maybe I need out of it. Do you know what I mean? If this don't maybe give it a season. But I think he's an absolute baller, mate. I think he's a fantastic talent. So, yeah, let's see what happens with England, man. But let's move it towards Arsenal. What have you made so far, bruv? Because it's been very quiet. To be fair, with all clubs, but what are you seeing in the last couple of days that excites you, Curtis?
What, Dan Bentley, 50,000 or 500,000 offer? Yeah, I'm delighted. Bro, as a content creator, every day, before you go live, you do your research, and I'm like, Calafiore again. Like Fabrizio Romano's recycled the same tweet about 15 times. Listen, the window in general's been quiet, but I always say, like, I'm not really bothered what other teams are doing. I focus on what we're doing. There are players moving, Mbappe left early. Fofana's on his way to AC Milan, a player I think we should have looked at. There are deals happening. Douglas Luiz has gone. So I just want to see Arsenal get moving. One thing that's disappointed me is I think over the last 2 years, what has helped us start the season well, we've taken our new signings on the pre-season tour, which I think is a great opportunity to settle into the club and find your feet quickly. We go on tour a week on Monday, at the most, you might have Calafiore there. I don't think we're going to end up with any new signings on that tour. And obviously now with England making the final, I don't think, the likes of Rice and Saka will go to that tour either. So I'm a bit disappointed that we've moved so slow, but I suppose if we get the right players and it takes a little bit longer, then we're all prepared to fall back a little bit and say, don't rush and buy the wrong player, take your time and get the right player. So the thing with this window, it's a window that I feel like the players are there in the positions we need them. It's whether they go for them or not. There's so many names that I'm sure we're going to talk about, but I don't think we need a lot. I think we need 2 or 3 quality players that can maybe go into the 11. And then maybe 2 or 3 that can boost that bench a little bit. And I think we're good to go. So I think this is more of a quality over quantity window for Arsenal. So, yeah,
Listen,
that's where
I'm normally on the same page of you, to be fair. I think you and I are very similar in how we see the club, the players, the management, the regime. I feel for me like there is probably 3 positions, maybe 4, that I look at in the first 11 at Arsenal, right? And you go, are they one of the best players in the league? And there's probably 7 or 8 positions at Arsenal where you can say at least they are in the top 3 in their position.
Yeah.
If you go through our back line, our midfield, and our strike force, right, or our front 3. But I think a striker, a left 8, a left back, and a goalkeeper are probably the 4 areas that we'd look at and go, yeah, they're not. Like, you don't know what you're going to get from Timber at left back yet because he's been injured, but maybe he will be. David
Yeah.
Raya, I don't think he's better than Emi Martinez, Alisson,
No.
Ederson. I don't think we've got a striker at Arsenal, let alone one that be in the top 3 or 4 in the league. So I think that's quite clear. And then whether or not you believe Declan Rice is a left 8, at the moment he's been playing for most of his season in the 6. So certainly in the 6 he's one of the best, but that means we don't have an 8 that's going to be in the best. So I think it's clear what we need in the first team. You're right in terms of some of the players that we might need to upgrade upon. I don't want to see Eddie on the bench or Reece Nelson on the bench anymore. I'm sick and tired of that, brother. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely need them players to be coming in. But you're absolutely right. I don't think we need to go and get like 12 new players at Arsenal when we probably would have been saying that a couple of seasons ago, right? So I think you're absolutely right in terms of that. Let's go through the departments, because I did a show the other night, which was a good one, where we kind of went through each department and looked at the rumours and what we needed. We might as well start in goal, because Aaron Ramsdale looks like he's probably going to be leaving, Curtis. Now, we want £50 million. My first question to you is, do you think we can get that? And if so, who the hell is going to bid that for him? Like, where do you see him going?
Yeah, man, you ain't getting 50 million for him. Like, Arsenal have this thing, don't they, of like when they're selling a player, it's almost like they've got a habit of making them seem like they're not boosting their price, they're reducing it. You've made Ramsdale just sit on the bench all season. He's come in a couple times, hasn't done great. He's gone to the Euros, hasn't really kicked a ball. It's like, when you want to sell something, don't appear desperate to sell it, because you're going to be, they're going to offer you low offers. You're not going to get 50 million for Ramsdale. I was hoping that maybe Newcastle would come in for him, but they're going for other goalkeepers by the look of it. Yeah, we've got no chance of getting 50 million for him. To be honest, I think at best we get our money back for him, which was maybe 30, 35. But again, I was hoping, and someone said there, Chris Chelsea, I think could do with a keeper, but the rumor is they're going to maybe stick with what they've got and spend their money elsewhere. So I think I'm looking at Ramsdale at the moment. I wouldn't even be totally surprised if he didn't go, because I'm sort of looking at the options thinking Ramsdale's not going to want to go to a bottom 8 or 9 team on a permanent deal. He's in the England squad. He's going to want to stay at a good level. So unless a big club comes in for him, I don't see how Arsenal get a big offer for him unless you end up loaning him out. But I feel like he's too good to loan out. You don't loan somebody like him out. So wouldn't actually surprise me if he was at Arsenal next season. But 50 million, I think, is optimistic. I think if you can get 30 to 35, which is disappointing, really, because I think the year before he would have been worth 50 million. So, yeah, I just can't see the destination for him at the moment where he would go.
I think we made it hard for ourselves now, because Ramsdale, we could have easily sold for 45, 50 million last season. If we were adamant we were bringing David Raya in, and we would have then had, Cole Hine or someone rubbish to back up. But at least you've got 50 million to then put towards a backup goalkeeper in another position. Now what we've done is we've kind of devalued him, and we've made it difficult for him, because there's only a number of clubs that he will actually want to go to unless he looks abroad. So I look at the situation of Ramsdale, and I just don't think Arteta's handled it very well, bro.
No.
And I know people will think that's toxic and negative thing to say, because everyone thinks I hate him, but I just don't think he's dealt with that well. And I have to be honest with you, Curtis, right? How many goalkeepers have we bloody had under Arteta now? 8. Do you know what I'm saying? And the best one was Emi Martinez, who we had at the start. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just got to be real with this. Sometimes you have to look at it and go, that is a bad mistake. Like, he's got to hold an L for that, for me, the manager, because I understand that he might want to upgrade on Ramsdale with who he thinks is Raya. But I would argue there's actually more upgrades out there on Raya. So he's actually, do you know what I'm saying? Like, would you rather go and get Diogo Costa, Jan Oblak, Michael Magnon, or would you actually rather go and stick with David Raya and Ramsdale? Because for me, bruv, if we're not going to get 25, 30 million for Ramsdale at a very bare minimum, I might as well just keep him as backup, bro. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You wonder, like, what is Arteta looking for? Because you walk into Emmy, who for me ticks so many boxes, and you decided to go with Leno. Or some people say Emmy wasn't willing to stay and fight, but after 9 years at the club, he probably thought, give me the number 1 shirt, I'm going to leave, which you could understand after that long. You go with Leno, then after 1 year, Leno's not the answer. He's not good enough on the ball, but every Arsenal fan knew Leno was not brilliant on the ball. He's a great shot stopper. And then you go with Ramsdale, there's a lot of question marks over him, been relegated, is he good enough? I thought Ramsdale was improving a lot. I never thought he was at the level of Edison and Allison, but I thought, he's in his mid-20s. Who knows where he can end up, in a few years' time. And then you kind of turn your back on him and go with Raya. Raya had a good season. He won the Golden Glove. I suppose we can't be too critical of him, but he still doesn't feel like a world-class goalkeeper to me. And at 29, I think, is he ever going to reach that level? I'm not sure. I don't think... I think Arteta will stick with David Raya for a little while now. I think, because if you're the board, if Arteta come back to you in a year and said, I want a keeper, you'd be saying, what's going on here, bro? Every summer you seem to want a goalkeeper. So I think he's actually going to have to stick with Raya for a little bit now. And if Ramsdale goes, get a backup goalkeeper. We got a lot of football this year. The Champions League is extended and you hope we have a better cup run. So maybe the backup goalkeeper will get more game time. But the risky thing, I suppose, is imagine we sell Ramsdale, sign Dan Bentley, and Raya got injured, and you're playing Dan Bentley in goal. Is that even a good enough backup goalkeeper? So, I've suggested players like De Gea and players like, I know people go, he's washed up now, but Golden Glove winner in his last season, that's a competent backup. I don't want to see Dan Bentley or Matt Turner level goalkeepers going, in goal. So it is an interesting one.
It is, man. And, I don't want to downgrade our two goalkeepers. And we would be doing that if Bentley come in to replace Ramsdale. I happen to think that he's going to come in as a third choice. There's a lot of rumours that suggest that he's going to be the homegrown equivalent of Scott Carson at Man City. So he's just going to be sitting there just in case we need the third choice. I'll bring this up from Jason because it's a super chat that's come in to say Arteta always wanted Raya. And he's absolutely right. And I think this ex-Brentford goalkeeping coach that we've got is looking at Dan Bentley because he knows him as well. So he's bringing in two goalkeepers that he's aware of. I just can't see Dan Bentley coming in and being the backup, bro. But I wanted to ask you quickly before we move on that 50K. I did a stream yesterday and got some heat from it. I think it is embarrassing and I think it is an insult to go up to a Wolves goalkeeper and say, here's 50K. I know you only spent 35 on him, but you want $1 million, now about 50K. Like, we've not even gone with 500K or tried to get half of it down. We've actually tried and say, actually, yeah, I know you spent 35 on him, but do you fancy £15,000 more? Someone put in my chat yesterday, you couldn't even buy a Bentley for 50K, let alone a damn Bentley. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's embarrassing, bro. What do you make of this one?
It's typical Arsenal, Dan. We've all been there. The PTSD is there, man. Suarez, 40 million and £1 and all that. It feels typical Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? It's embarrassing that you offered it and then it's been rejected and it's public knowledge and it's like, people are going, yo, you're trying to catch Pep Guardiola. I know this guy isn't going to play, but just get him signed. The guy played for Arsenal as a young player. We released him. So, apparently he's an Arsenal fan. So he'd probably be delighted sitting on Arsenal's bench. He's sitting on the Wolves bench. So clearly he's going to want to join. Just give him 500 grand, 700 grand, whatever. Get the deal done and keep it moving. Like now, the offer was so low, you wonder if Wolves will even want to negotiate with us now.
Yeah.
So just get it done and move on.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? You just want to go and get that. It's such the easiest signing to do ever, and we still can't get that done. What are we doing, man? Like that sounds like Arsene Wenger. That sounds like Arsene Wenger all over again. That doesn't it? That really does. This is a Suarez and a pound situation again. You know what I mean? This is a madness, bro.
It's
it really
crazy,
is,
man.
Listen, I think it'll happen. I actually feel like if Ramsdale is to go, he might have to lower his level and go and try and sign for a Wolves or a Bournemouth or a Brentford or a Fulham or something, because I don't see him going and getting that move somewhere in the top four. And if we do sell him, I think Dan Bentley will come in as the third and we'll get somebody like Justin Bielo or someone like that as a kind of backup or something like that, which isn't great, but we've got to try and do something about that. Let's talk about Calafiori because I think it's a very exciting signing when it actually happens, bro. As you mentioned, Fabrizio Romano seems to be recycling the same tweet. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Again, this is Arsenal trying to, save on the pennies, it seems. Bologna have said they want 50 million euros. Arsenal are trying to get him for nearer to 40, apparently. Again, I just think we should just get it done. Just get him in, get him to pre-season. Do you know what I'm saying? So what do you make of this signing, Curtis?
It's like he's got the qualities that Arteta likes. Again, this is, to me, it's a similar situation to the goalkeeper. Like every summer we seem to sign either a left back or a left-sided centre back who can play left back. Like we've signed Pablo Mari, we signed Gabriel, we've signed Zinchenko, we signed We tried to sign Lisandro Martinez. We signed Timber, who's kind of versatile. It's like
Kivior.
Kivior. With that left-sided centre-back slash, it just again feels like he's trying to get that Nathan Ake at Manchester City, that left-back slash centre-back who can sort of occupy both positions. Listen, am I excited by the signing? Not really, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough of the guy play. And I'm kind of wondering where he's going to play when he comes to Arsenal, because from what I've seen of him, he doesn't look better than Gabriel. So is he going in at left back? Would be interesting, because he played at centre back nearly all of last season. So how would he fare at left back? He's clearly got quality. He's good on the ball. You saw them qualities in the Euros. Left back is one of those positions in the team we've got a problem with. I kind of assumed that Timber was going to play left back, but with him being out injured for a year and stuff like that, maybe he wants someone else. So I reckon he comes in and plays at left back and sort of tucks in the way Nathan Ake does. But again, just, Bologna are not, no disrespect, they're not a massive team in Italy. They're going to want the money. Just sort of get the deal done. And I know it sounds very... People message me, go, this ain't Football Manager. You can't just get the deal done. But other clubs just get deals done, and it seems we drag it out. So I really hope he's in before the US tour. I want to see him play over there, because I'm not sure if he speaks English. Obviously, Jorginho will know him. You just want him to have that time to try and settle into the club. So, listen, he ticks a lot of boxes. He's a good age. And I think they're just sort of haggling over the structure of the deal and things like that. So hopefully they get it done quickly.
Yeah, I hope they do as well, brother. And I want to ask you about the left back scenario, because we seem to have about 106 left backs now. It's weird,
Yeah.
man. Timber and Calafiori are probably the two that I believe will probably start the season there. But what does that mean for Kivior, Zinchenko? Tavares, we believe, is going to Lazio. That looks like a done deal. What does this mean for Kieran Tierney? I mean, I know I've thrown a lot of names at you there, but where do you see this going, man? I'm a bit confused with the left back scenario, bro.
Yeah, we've ended up with loads, haven't we? Like you said, Tavares will go. I think Tierney will go, I think, as well, which is a shame, because I always thought he was going to have a big career at Arsenal. And then I think one of Kivior and Zinchenko will go as well. It seems like Kivior, just because of the interest in him. I think Zinchenko, it doesn't seem like anyone's really in for him. And Kivior seems to be rated in Italy, which does make you think sometimes that we haven't... I've been a little bit critical of Kivior, to be honest, but we haven't really seen him play as a centre-back. And that's where he played in Italy. So there's obviously something there. It'd be strange if we sold him to Italy and then he ended up playing well at centre-back when we haven't really played him. But I think Kivior probably goes. With Zinchenko, it's interesting because he's only got 2 years left and apparently doesn't have an option on there. So if you keep him for another year, you've then got a year left. He could always sit it out then and say, I'm just going to wait around and see out my contract. So Zinchenko, for me, Zinchenko would be gone this summer, to be honest. I've seen enough of him at left back. I've always said with Zinchenko, if you're not going to play the guy in midfield, get rid of him. I don't rate him as a left back. I don't think defensively he's good enough. The first season he made an impact dropping into midfield, and it did help us. But last season I thought he was a liability at times, and I would have probably sold him, but I just don't think clubs really want him. So, yeah, I think Zinni will probably be here next season. Tierney will go. We're not going to get a lot of money for him. I saw today Celtic want him, but they can't afford the wages. So wouldn't surprise me if he goes on loan as well and sort of runs out his contract. So it's disappointing, really. But, yeah, we just need that long-term solution there. We don't need 5 left backs. We just need a couple of really good ones. So Timber excites me from what I saw last summer. He got man of the match in the Community Shield at left back. So I kind of thought Timber was going to be the left back, but maybe he thinks Calafiori needs to come in because Timber's been out for a year. It might take him a while. So I think if we got Calafiori and Timber there, and then in an emergency you've got Zinchenko, even Tomiyasu can go there. I think that's enough. Kivior goes back to Italy. Tierney goes, and obviously Tavares. Good move for Tavares, by the way.
Yeah, it is, man. That is, and it's
Yeah,
actually a good move for us because apparently there's an obligation to buy for like 7 million euros, which is pretty much what we bought him for. So somehow
yeah,
we've got our money back on him. I mean, the
yeah.
right side, Curtis. I must say, like a lot of people disagree with this, but I've always been looking for a Saliba replacement, and I'm still not sure we've got one. I
Mm,
understand Ben White and Tommy Tomiyasu can play there if he gets a knock, but if he gets like proper crocked, I'm talking like ACL and touch wood, it doesn't happen. Who's
yeah,
playing there long term? Because I'm not sure Ben White was convincing enough long term. Tommy Tomiyasu, likewise, I've seen him there for a couple of games, but never long term. What do
yeah.
we do there, bruv? This is why when you mentioned Mark Gahey earlier, I wouldn't be against something like that. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, right-sided centre back. I mean, yeah, you could put Ben White there, but number one, Kivior's injury prone. Not Kivior, sorry, Tomiyasu. He's injury prone if you was to put him at right back long term. And like you said, Ben White for me has looked far better at right back than at centre back. So
Mhm.
yeah, we don't really have any cover at right-sided centre back. And the worrying thing now is, and again, this is the Arsenal PTSD talking, is that Saliba's just played 38 Premier League games and he's just played every game for France at the Euros. You know, is he then going to come back and play 38 games? Champions League's been extended to 8 group games. You know, we're asking a lot of a guy in his early 20s. So, yeah, I honestly thought we were going to go and sign maybe Diamande from Sporting
Mm.
Lisbon. We've been linked with him for a while and that's disappeared. Maybe from his point of view, he thinks, look, Timber is a centre back by trait. You know, maybe he would go there and play next to Gabby, but he's a bit smaller than Saliba as well. So, but I suppose Timber is that utility player that could
Yeah.
cover all the gaps.
Yeah, he does play across the back line, as Clement has said. So maybe that's what they're looking at. No more defenders. Let's move into midfield, bro, because there's a couple of names that have been banding around. I've got to be real with you, bro. I don't think we're going to get that signing that makes us go wow, unless there's a shock that happens. The players we're
Mm.
linked with are all like meaty. Maybe that's harsh. They're good players. I mean, like Nana, for example, Everton, Anana, Mikel Moreno, Zubamendi. Um, I, I'm kind of running out of names already. Do you know? See what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't think there's a players. I think we need two, bruv. I think we need
yeah.
a 6 and an 8. And two of the players I wanted us to look at have just left. One's gone to Juve, the other one's going to AC Milan. Yusuf Fofana and Kefren Turam, I thought would have been two good options at Arsenal, but they've now moved on, so that's not going to be possible. I don't see us getting a Bruno Guimaraes, a De
No.
Jong, Barella, someone mad like that. So where do we go in this position, bro? What do you think we need, and what would you like to see happen, man?
Yeah, man, the options are running out. Marino, I actually like him.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm not saying he's not a world beater, but I just think he's got a lot of qualities that would help us. He's very good on the ball. He's quite strong. Played in the Prem, left-footed as well. I do like him, and he's got a year left. So I think all this time Arsenal been linked with Zubamendi, I've always been like, nah, not for me. Looks lightweight, has got no. You listen to his interviews, he's always saying he doesn't want to come to England. So I feel like if he came, is he just coming for the money? So
Yeah.
Mendy to me, I do not want at Arsenal. I like Marino. Listen, the options are limited because for me personally, I would love to see someone like Frankie de Jong come in, but of
Oh
course,
yeah.
the wage and the cost. Uh, the options are limited. I would have loved Bruno Guimaraes as well. He had
Yep.
that release clause, didn't he, till the end of June? I'm shocked that nobody triggered that. Apparently it was 100, but maybe 80 if he was in the Champions League. Yeah, the options, when I see like you said, when I see a Nana from Everton, I'm just like, 2 years ago when we was finishing fifth, I was excited by that signing. I wanted Tielemans and players like that. But now I kind of just not sure about them guys. So the midfield one is a little worrying because I think we all know Partey and Rice would be the partnership, but we all know we can't trust Partey to get anywhere near 38 league games. So they've got to get someone. The thing with Arsenal, they tend to sign somebody that we're not even talking about.
Yep.
Kivior came out of nowhere. Fabio Vieira came out of nowhere. Nobody linked us to Havertz. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just pull someone out the hat that we're not expecting. It's crazy that when we were linked with Douglas Luiz, I was reading 80 million, 90 million. He goes to Juventus for 20 million plus 2 squad players. It's like one price for the Premier League and one for
Yeah.
others. Yeah, they've. There's no obvious answer really in midfield. I mean, a lot of people saying Eze. I love Eze. I'm not sure
Yeah.
he's the guy to go in the middle of the park and play next to Declan Rice. I think he's a little bit more advanced, but he is a player I would love to see Arsenal go and get. But we've got to go and get a top quality midfielder. You've got to put somebody next to Declan Rice. I think last year at times we isolated him and made him. I said so many times on streams, he's doing more running for Arsenal than he did for West Ham because he had people around him like, Souček and that who were dogging and running around for West Ham. At times he was playing in a single pivot with like Havertz and Odegaard in the first half of the season. So I think you've got to have that midfielder that against better teams can just go and sit next to him and give us that balance. But yeah, at the moment there's no obvious one. Fofana's crazy to me that we didn't look at him because mid-20s, French international, absolutely bossed us in pre-season. Apparently we've sent scouts to watch him multiple times and they reckon like £25 million. He ticks every box, but he's obviously going to AC Milan. So
I think that one's mad for me because that's the one I would have 100% loved to have seen, but also thought was easy to get.
yeah,
£25 million. He clearly would have come to Arsenal. We've
yeah,
obviously got either targets elsewhere or we just don't fancy the look of him. Now, Mikel Moreno, I don't actually know much about. I've been quite impressed with most of the Spanish players in midfield, particularly this Euro tournament. So obviously he's one
yeah,
that I've looked at. Scored the winner against Germany and looks a little bit like the mold of Granit Xhaka to me, really. Like bit of an 8, bit of a guy in midfield who keeps things ticking. So I wouldn't be against that signing, but that for me isn't enough. I kind of
yeah,
feel like we need 2 in there. So it could be that Partey and Jorginho stay. We don't know what's happening with Partey. There's still rumours of Saudi Arabia.
yeah,
Declan Rice, I think, is the 8, but might have to play the 6, and probably will have a similar scenario as we did last season. Sorry, but I do feel like that if you was to get 2 in, it's fine. But where are they? Like, who are they going to get? Who's going to go? Wow, that has massively taken our midfield to the next level. I'm not so sure there's a realistic target at the moment that does that, bruv. So I think the midfield is probably one of the most interesting departments at Arsenal right now
yeah,
in terms of where we're at. When we look wide, there's an amazing amount of options. Nico
yeah,
Williams has been mentioned. Eze, you've mentioned, can play there. Pedro Neto is a player I really like.
yeah,
Bakayoko from PSV was being linked. And then there's a couple of Bayern Munich players people are looking at, Coleman, Gnabry and Sane, that might all be available because they apparently need to sell. Xavi
yeah.
Simons is looking likely to go to Bayern Munich, a player that I would actually quite like at Arsenal. What are you saying on the wide men, man? Because Martinelli and Trossard and Saka are all there. Fabio Vieira's played there. I don't rate him. Nelson looks like he's going. We need someone for that Saka position, don't we?
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think both sides, because I even felt like at the beginning of last season, I felt like the left-hand side was no problem. Now I'm a little bit, I haven't turned on those players. I still rate them both. I think Trossard plays better in a central area. He hasn't really got that pace to go and just go past right wingers. I think he's a very good finisher, so he's good in the central area. And Martinelli didn't have a good season. And Martinelli's actually one of my favourite Arsenal players, but his sort of intelligence at times on the ball was lacking last season. This head down and just run thing that he was doing was, he's got to change that and start lifting his head and playing at different tempos. But I think you've got to give Saka competition and you've just got to give Saka the ability to not play every week. We just ran him into the ground. And, the fact now he's going to the final of the Euros, he's going to need at least 3 weeks off. He's going to probably miss the whole US tour, probably come back for the Emirates Cup. You've got to get someone else in. And you've just reeled off 5-6 names there that I would take probably all of those guys you said. Neto, I think, is a fantastic player. I know his injury record's not great. And then, like you said, it looks like Bayern Munich are going to offload because they've spent 100 million on Paulinho and Elise. So they're talking about getting rid of one. I would take Gnabry, I would take Kingsley Coman or Leroy Sané at Arsenal. I just think we need some pace. We need pace. I would love Nico Williams. It looks like Barcelona are going to get him. So there's no excuse with the wingers because you could buy 3 or 4 of them. I suppose the problem you've got if you're trying to sign a right winger, the first question the agent's going to say is, well, what's the situation with Saka? If you wanted Leroy Sané on 250 grand a week, they're going to say, well, how does that work with Saka? Because he's your main player in attack. But then you could play Sané on the left, you could play Saka on the left, you can rotate them. I suppose you could still sell it to them, but we've got to get a right winger. We have to get, if you've got Nelson as the backup, or I know a lot of people saying use Jesus as the backup winger, but my thing is always what you said there earlier about Saliba. If Saka was out long term, are we comfortable with Gabriel Jesus right wing for 15, 20 games? It's not. He can step in for 2 or 3 games, but for a long period, I don't think it's enough. And he's injury prone. So I think right wing is, we have to get a quality right winger in. Definitely.
Yeah, we do, man. And a lot of people then move on to, well, what does that mean for the striker situation? Because Jesus, you've mentioned, Havertz has played up there. Eddie Nketiah looks to be leaving, which we'll come to in a minute.
Yeah.
Would you be disappointed if Arsenal don't get a striker this window, Curtis?
Bro, honestly, I'll go beyond that, and I'll go beyond that. And I would say if Arsenal don't buy a striker, I don't think we can win the title next season. That's me being honest. I don't see it. Now, people will say, oh, negative, or we scored 90 goals last season. It's not that we can't get the numbers. It's the moments in the big games. We all watched that Tottenham-Man City game last season where Son missed. I thought Man City played very average that day. Haaland scored both goals. They won the game. That's what a top striker does for you at times. They will win you a game when your back's against the wall and your team is struggling. And I've mentioned this stat a number of times about last season. Havertz last season didn't score home or away against Liverpool. He didn't score home or away against Man City or in the Community Shield. So that's 5 games. He didn't score against Porto in the knockout stage, home or away. And he didn't score against Bayern Munich, home or away. So in 9 of our biggest, toughest games of the season, Havertz didn't get 1 goal. Now, that's not me saying he didn't contribute, because he got an assist against Man City and he got, Konate sent off against Liverpool. But in your 9 biggest games, your striker hasn't hit the back of the net once. Now, in a lot of those big games, Aston Villa at home, West Ham at home, Fulham away, games we should have won, we were desperate for a goal. Havertz is not that clutch striker. You saw it with Germany against Spain, 1-on-1 with the keeper. The game before, he did that great turn, 1-on-1. He's not a goal scorer. He's not a natural striker. And Arsenal create a lot of chances. So for me, it's the most important signing of the summer is the striker. And if they stick with Havertz as the number 1 striker and you're running with Jesus as the backup against Haaland, who hasn't played a Euros, who's going to be fresh and ready to go, and Alvarez, I don't think that bridges the gap. Ultimately, we keep finishing behind Man City, which means we need to do something to get ahead of them. Keeping Havertz up front for a season, for me, I think we could finish second. We could compete for trophies, but you are not beating Pep Guardiola's Man City with Havertz up top. It is not happening. I'm sorry.
No, I totally agree with you, bro. And the striker I want is Alexander Isak. It doesn't look like that's going to be a possibility. I would say, however, that I'd love Arsenal to show that ambition and go, do you know what? I know you apparently don't want to go, but here's 120 million. Do you know what I mean? What do you say now? And start to unsettle him a bit. And I know Newcastle fans that watch this won't like that, but that's what you've got to do in this game. We've got to be ruthless. That's the only striker for me available right now that you look at and go, yeah, that takes Arsenal across the line. Whereas I'm not so sure that some of the other options will. So let me ask you that, man. Victor Osimhen, Victor Gyökeres, Ivan Toney. We've got other options that are coming our way. What are you saying, bro, for this striker situation?
Yeah, they're all a gamble. All of them are a gamble. It's almost like stick or twist to you. And I think that's what Arsenal are probably thinking, that like do we pay 100 million for Osimhen, or do we just stick with Havertz? Or do we pay 85 million for Gyökeres, who's had 1 year in Portugal? Or do we stick with Havertz? Ivan Toney, listen, I've said many times on my channel, I would sign Ivan Toney because he's not going to cost as much as the other 2, and we've seen him do it in the Premier League, so I feel like it's less of a gamble. Pardon the pun, with Ivan Toney and Gamble. But I suppose the problem with Toney, and this one thing I was saying the other day, somebody said to me, and I was like, you see, with Tonali at Newcastle, got done for gambling like Toney, and then now they're going for him. They've gone for him again. So imagine we sign Toney for 60 million and he gets done again, or something else came up. It'd be typical Arsenal. Buy him for 60 million, he gets banned for a season.
Yeah.
So I would love Toney at Arsenal. I think 55, 60 million, but he's not in that mold of personality that I feel like Arteta likes. And that's something I think he needs to get away from. I think sometimes Arteta likes them nice, well-behaved, clean-cut footballers, which is nice. You want a nice dressing room, but also some of the best players, mate, they've got that chip on their shoulder, Thierry had an attitude, Anelka had an attitude, right? He was turning up late for training. A lot of these players have that about them. So Osimhen for me is I don't know with Osimhen. I've just never been fully convinced he's like £100 million player. I do think he could score goals. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sure with him. And Gyökeres, he does look exciting. I think he got 40 goals last year, but Darwin got, I think, 35 goals in Portugal, and he hasn't really done it in the Prem. But I think sometimes you got to take a gamble. Ultimately, sometimes you got to say he's had 1-2 good years, and we'll take the risk. And I think keeping Havertz is a bigger gamble than spending 90 million on Osimhen or buying Toney for 60 mil or even risking it on Gyökeres. So one of those three. But I agree with you with the Isak thing. I think people always say, oh, he's not available. I say, well, if you look back through history, big players, when they're bought, are often not available. It's the club goes there and disrupts them, And I think if Arsenal turned up and slapped 120 million down at Newcastle, I think Isak would start acting a little bit different. You might start seeing transfer requests and all sorts going off. So, yeah, it's difficult, but Arsenal just don't tend to operate like that, do they? We haven't really seen that happen.
No, absolutely, bro. I'm totally with you in everything you've said up top. I think Ivan Toney, like you say, would probably be the less amount of risk because of the money. But I look at some of the other options and I think actually potentially all of them are risks because Victor Osimhen's injury record isn't great. Victor Gyökeres is coming from a different league, although I do quite like what I hear and see. Ivan Toney is different being up top for Arsenal than it is to up top for Brentford. And I think Ollie Watkins goes in that bracket as well. And I also feel like with some of the other names that we're linked with, Dovbyk over at Girona, I know there's been other mentions of names. I don't think any of them will go, yeah, that's the one. Apart from Alexander Isak, So I'm going to be honest with you and say that I think Isak will stay at Newcastle this summer. But if Newcastle don't get that Champions League spot or win a trophy or look to be progressing, then I think that's the absolute definite player that Arsenal should be going all out for next window when he does become available. So that's what I'll say on that. Before we kind of come to a close, bro, there's 600 people in here, man. Make sure you get a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you do exactly the same to Curtis Shaw TV. All you got to do is click on his name and it takes straight to the channel. So make sure you subscribe to Curtis as well, people. Let's talk about a couple of players that look like they're going to be moving away. We touched on Tavares, touched on Kieran Tierney, but there are some other links today for Eddie Nketiah. Marseille, who I think De Zerbi's the manager of them now, isn't he? Apparently, are linked with him. Do you think Eddie's going to stay in the Premier League, or do you think he could maybe be tempted over in France to Marseille? And what sort of price do you think we could get for Eddie, bro?
Eddie, I suppose. I think he'd rather stay in the Prem, but I suppose it depends what level clubs are coming in for him. Marseille are a big football club in Europe. The funny thing about that deal, apparently they want him as Aubameyang's backup, which is quite ironic when you think about it. But Eddie, for me, I mean, I've said a lot about Eddie in the past, so I'll be careful. But we have to get rid of him this summer, in my opinion. I think he should have gone a while ago, but if they can get 20 million, 25 plus, I think Arsenal want a similar figure to what they got for Balogun. I don't actually think they'll get that for him because Balogun had just had a 20-goal season. He was leading the line for America. There was a lot of hype around him. There isn't really that sort of hype around Eddie. So, you get anything above 25 million, I think would be good business. He came through the system, didn't cost us anything. You're getting 100 grand a week off the books as well. And listen, I hope people always think, oh, you're so harsh on Eddie. I just don't rate the guy. You know, I don't rate him, and I don't hide behind. I don't rate him. I don't think he's good enough. But I hope he, goes somewhere else and does well. But I think you get 25, 30 million for him. I'd take that all day long.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I know that a report come out suggesting that 50 million again. I understand. Listen, I understand why they do it, because we're basically saying if you want him, he ain't going to come cheap. But I'd be amazed if we don't, if we don't sell him for 25, 30 tops, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I look around and I think if Elliot Anderson can go from Newcastle for 35 million, perhaps we can get some money for Eddie, right? But at the same time, I don't want to be putting off teams. And if there is a bit of a bidding war, maybe Fulham, Wolves, Palace, West Ham all decide, I'll have a bit of Eddie. Maybe we can then start a bit of a bidding war to get up closer to 30 to 35. But if I'm honest with you, he ain't worth more than that. Let's just be real. Like, Eddie Nketiah is an okay player. He is not taking you to the next level. He's 25 and crikey, people think he's a young kid. That's mad. It really is. So that's where I'm at there. I wanted to touch on Nelson and Smith Rowe, brother, as well, because they're two players that absolutely love Arsenal. Likewise, similar question, really. What sort of price do you think we should be trying to get for these two? And would you sell them both?
Nelson's got to go as well. It just hasn't developed. It's never happened for him, has it? I think everyone can agree Nelson's got talent. You can see the pace. He's direct. We'll never forget the Bournemouth goal, but he's had loans that haven't worked. He's come back. He could have gone to Brighton. Then he signed a new deal, 100 grand a week again, which, some people say, 100 grand a week, but Ederson's on 100 grand a week. He's won 5 Premier Leagues, and we got a winger that doesn't hardly kick a ball getting 100 grand a week. So Nelson's got to go. I'd like to think we could get 15 to 20 million for him. And sometimes I don't say my price, I say the price that we will probably get with Edu doing the negotiating. Do you know what I mean? We just got to be realistic here. Like, Eddie, 30, 40 million, I would say, but Arsenal, maybe not. Smith Rowe for me, Smith Rowe's a tricky one because I actually, in an ideal world, don't want to sell Smith Rowe. I like him. Yeah, I think he's part of the reason Arteta's even the manager with that 10-goal season he had. And people say, he's injury prone. But funnily enough, he was on the bench nearly all of last season. So is he really that injury prone? He had one season where he was injured a lot. That's one season. A lot of players have an injury prone season. My thing with Smith Rowe is, if you're going to get me Eze or somebody like that who plays in a similar role to Smith Rowe, and he's a suitable upgrade on him, I would put my hands up and say, okay, Smith Rowe's got to go, right? Because if you're bringing in Eze or you're bringing in Danny Olmo or you're bringing in somebody of that level, then I've got no problem. If Arsenal sell Smith Rowe, don't bring in an Eze or somebody like that, and you're keeping Fabio Vieira as Odegaard's backup, that for me doesn't make any sense, because I think Smith Rowe's better than Fabio Vieira at Arsenal in the Premier League. Vieira might go to Spain, Portugal and look a player. In the Prem, he's done nothing really of note at Arsenal. A good long shot against Brentford and a couple of decent passes. So if you're upgrading him, no problem. I think Smith Rowe is worth a better amount of money, because I think clubs would take him. He's been linked with Newcastle, West Ham, Wolves. If a West Ham or Newcastle come in for him, I think you should be getting 40 million for him at least. If Anderson's costing 30 million, Smith Rowe's played for England. He wears the number 10 shirt. I'd want at least 40 million for Smith Rowe if he left.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot agree with you more about the Fabio Vieira and Smith Rowe thing. And I don't understand why there's some Arsenal fans out there that still think we're being harsh with Fabio Vieira. I mean, the manager doesn't even trust him. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we've got a situation where this guy has paid £38 million for him, or whatever it was, 35 to 38. Started him in a few games, started the season, if you remember, where he was kind of coming on and contributing. And then we've got now, like, I don't want to bring him on. And when I do bring him on, he kind of plays a little bit of everywhere. There's not really a position for the lad. I just find it very, very odd, man. I don't know, bruv. I just find it all a bit strange. And I'm with you on Smith Rowe. I think we should 100% try to keep him. I really do. Um, I like him as a squad player, and I think when he came into the team, he gave 110%. Sentimentally, I love him as well because he's a massive
Yeah,
gooner, right? And I
yeah,
do think there's a player there. I just think he's got potential. The only thing I will say is if we do keep him and his injuries are as bad as they have been, I think we might have to cut our losses and say this is time to actually look at getting rid of him. But
yeah,
then again, you might damage some of his value there if that was the case. So this could be quite a difficult one, to be fair.
yeah,
So we'll see
yeah,
what happens with Smith Rowe, bro. We'll see what happens.
yeah.
Listen, before we do close, bro, I want to ask you quickly about we're gonna do some super chats to close, but I wanted to ask you, I can't not, about the Arteta situation. I know you and I have been very vocal over the last couple of years, or probably longer than that
Yeah,
now, about Arteta getting across the line. And to be fair, I always felt like you and I are probably in the minority, to be fair, because a lot of people do
yeah,
love what he's done. And I think he deserves a lot of credit. Don't get me wrong for what he's done.
yeah.
But getting us across the line is so vital and important. And I don't mean winning a League Cup finally. I mean getting us across the big boy trophies. What do you think he needs to do this season for you to allow everybody like you and I to feel like, yeah, do you know what? Fair play. Is it win the big boy? Is it win a trophy? Like, what's he got to do, bruv?
Um, I mean, listen, context is everything. You know, you could finish second and win nothing. I might be saying he's got to go. He could finish second and win the FA Cup and the League Cup. And I'm saying, okay, that's something to build on. This is his third title challenge this season against Pep. The first one kind of came out of nowhere, and that one went. I felt there were reasons behind that, in particular, the Saliba injury. Last season, personally, I think we should have won the league. I think we genuinely should have won the title last year. That Aston Villa game to me was where it went. And that's why I went so crazy after that game, because I just felt that's where we'd thrown it away. To me, if he can't win the league this season, which is very difficult, by the way, you know, I'm under no illusion. This is Pep Man City, one of the best teams we've seen. But if you've had 3 title challenges and you haven't been able to get the better of him, and if you're not winning trophies elsewhere, then my question is always, well, if not now, then when? When is Arteta going to be able? Are we going to have to wait for Pep to leave the Premier League before Arteta wins the title? Which, in a way, you want to win the league when he's here to say,
Yeah, you do.
It off Pep. You don't want to wait, Klopp's gone, Pep's gone. Now we've nicked a title. I want to win it while Pep's here. I just think, listen, my thing with Arteta is this. I feel like I will give him credit or criticize him based on what I see. Over the last 2 seasons, he's deserved a lot of credit for what has happened over the last 2 years. You've implemented a style of football that is excellent to watch. We're getting big points tallies. We're scoring a lot of goals. You're improving players. We've got a young squad that's worth a lot of money. How can I not sit here and applaud him for doing those things? I'm not going to, you know, just criticize the guy for everything he does. He's done some brilliant things. However, at the same time, this is your 6th season at the football club and you've won 1 FA Cup. Now, people include Community Shields, but I don't class that as a major trophy. You've won 1 FA Cup in 5 seasons. You've had a lot of time, you've had a lot of stability, and you've had a lot of money. You've had 700 million. We'll probably spend at least another 150 to 200 this year. So if you've been at a club for 5 seasons, you've spent over 800 million, which I think it will be by the end of this transfer window. You've then got to deliver something. We can't talk about trust the process, the time. We're Arsenal Football Club, bro. Like, Newcastle have made the Champions League. Aston Villa have just made the Champions League. Tottenham have made the Champions League a few times in the last few years. Arsenal getting top 4 under Arsene Wenger led to protests outside the stadium. Fans said, I don't care about top 4, mate. You need to win something. We can't then, 7, 8, 9 years after Wenger, start turning around and saying, oh, this is success. This isn't success. We're one of the biggest clubs in the world. We make crazy amounts of money on a match day. We've got a massive stadium, quality training ground. Everything is in place for this football club to be successful. So to me now, people constantly tell me Arteta's a brilliant manager. And I say, okay, I'm not quite in that same boat of thinking he's a brilliant manager. But if he is a brilliant manager, and we've got a very good team at the moment, to me, he should be delivering trophies to this football club. And that's where I see it. I think his cup record over the last 5 years has been very poor, but maybe he doesn't view the League Cup and the FA Cup in the same way. So maybe he thinks, I need to win the Premier League and I'll let those trophies go. But that's fair enough. But you've got to then deliver a Premier League. Now, people say who can replace Arteta, but I always say this. When Emery left, very few people would have sat there and said, go and get Man City's assistant manager, who's never managed a game in his life. We're now sitting here saying, he's a good manager. So we can't get tied down in this situation of thinking we can never let Arteta go because who can replace him? Because Xabi Alonso's just won the Bundesliga. Simone Inzaghi's just won Serie A. There are managers out there who can do a job. You know, Ancelotti might be leaving Real Madrid next summer. There's other managers we could talk about. We'd be here all day. But for me now, Arteta has had the time, the patience, the structure. You've got to go and deliver something major in my eyes. Now, as I said, it could be context. I can't just say second isn't enough, because if he won like the League Cup, the FA Cup, and got to a Champions League semi-final, that makes it a bit different. But to me, he has to win silverware this season, because I've said it before and I've said it again, Saliba will leave if we keep finishing second. You're playing for France and Mbappe and Camavinga and all those guys. Just won the Champions League or just won the Liga. He's going to sit there and go, I need to win something eventually. I can't sit here for years. Saka will be the same at England, you know, and if he wins the Euros, that's going to give him that taste for success and he's going to want more of it. So I think Arteta this year has to win a trophy. We have to take that step forward now. And, you know, Liverpool managed to do it. People say, oh, Liverpool only won one title, but Klopp won Champions Leagues and got to 3 finals and won the FA Cup, won the League Cup, won the World Club Cup and the Super Cup. So he's got to go and win things this season for me. I think he's had enough time. I think the team's good enough. He's been backed by the owners. Otherwise, you're a manager that can compete, but maybe not get us over the line. And that's everything people have said about Southgate. You compete, you get semi-finals, you get to the final, but you don't win. That's why everyone's critical of him. And the same thing should apply to Arteta, in my opinion.
Listen, bro, like I've just sat there and listened to you, and sometimes when I listen, it is literally like listening to myself, man. You're absolutely spitting facts as far as I'm concerned, bro. I don't disagree with anything you've just said. And if we was to have a similar season to the one that we've just had, but we finish it with an FA Cup or trophy, I'm happy. If we fail and throw domestic cups away like he has done in the last few seasons, and we still finish second best in the league and don't win a Champions League, I think it will be very hard for many people to defend those that are saying maybe it's time for a change. Because how long do we keep going? Do we keep saying, just give him another window, just give him more time? But Pep's still here. There always seems to be a lot of excuses at Arsenal. There always seems to be a lot of people that are saying, what if we did this? What if we done that? And it just goes back, by the way, before Mikel Arteta. What if David Dean never left? What if we never went from Highbury? What if Thierry Henry doesn't miss that at Barcelona in the final? This goes back years, mate. What if Eduardo didn't break his leg? We would have won the league. And then now we're bringing this over. So there are a lot of people that definitely, rightly so, should get behind what Mikel Arteta has done, because it has been really good in terms of where we were to where we are now. But sometimes there are nearly there men. And he, at the moment, is a nearly there man. And until he changes into someone that can lift a trophy, like a Premier League, like a Champions League, with the team that he's built, not an FA Cup with Unai Emery's side, I will always have that doubt in my head as to whether he can get us across the line. So I'm exactly the same as you, brother. And if he wins a trophy, fair play. I'm keeping him. Look, let me get these super chats in and then we're going to get out of here, because I know you've got a show as well, brother. Jason has said, Arteta always wants Raya. He's also said, let's face it, none of us really liked our left backs. Calafiori was the left back before last season and offers cover for Gabriel. Timber and White can cover William Saliba. I think we kind of touched on that as well, agreed with that as well, Jason. So big up to you. From Gunner says, big up, fellas. Do you think that Rice's long-term partner should be a deep lying midfielder or a Chaka type? Also, Kadioglu for left wing, right wing, left back, and right back. Yeah, he's a guy in Turkey that's done very well at the moment and is looking very versatile, but I think looks a hell of a lot more attack minded than I think defense
Yeah.
minded. But there we go. Just thoughts on that quickly, Curtis. Deep line midfielder for Rice.
I think at the moment, well, I reckon they might go for a 6 and push him forward. I just think there's more options there.
Interesting, man. We'll have to see. The last two of the day are from Rodriguez. He said, big up from California. The two realist Arsenal fans, big up, man. Much appreciated. And this one comes in, says, facts, Curtis, 100% league or Champions League or sack him. Now, listen, I think a trophy and he'll be absolutely fine. Don't really care what one it is, to be honest. I would prefer Champions League because it means that we can finally shut everyone up. But of course, the Premier League is one that we've been chasing, which seems like forever now. Listen, I've got to close there, man. You're an absolute legend for coming on, Curtis. Thanks so much, bro.
Hey, anytime, bro. I know we've tried to make the show happen. I've just been so busy, and I know you're busy, but we're gonna try and make it a regular thing throughout the season and get you on my channel and come on here. So, and I know you've gone full time now, so keep doing your thing. You know, putting out quality content. Every time I'm up in the morning, I'm going gym. I'm like, yo, Dan's live already, 8:30. So, keep doing your thing, bro, and hopefully the channel keeps growing and we'll do more content over the season.
Love for that, man. Much appreciated. Make sure you're doing me a favor, people. Hit the like on this one. There's still 600 in here, so please make sure you hit like and subscribe on this one. And of course, click on the title. It will take you to Curtis Shaw TV. He's about to go live now. So if you do that now, you can wait there for him and he'll be doing a show. So please make sure that you do that. We're getting out of here, people. Take it easy. And as always, up the Arsenal. Laters.